to Other Duties as Assigned. I'm here with Julia Crone, Assistant Principal here at Plainfield Community Middle School, and this is the second part of our series that we're going to talk to administrators and get some perspective about making that transition into the office and what that can feel like, what lessons they learned, and what their experience has been like to share with other administrators so we can learn from each other, but also for aspiring administrators as well. So Julia, why don't you start by giving us kind of your path into the big chair in the office and what that's looked like?
You know what, Brent? My dad was actually an administrator. He was a building principal. He was my 5th grade math teacher. And then that next year, my 6th grade year, he went and he was an elementary school principal. So I grew up running around the school building, living the education life, and education has just always been in my blood. So I started as a social studies teacher, and I spent, I think, 6 years as a 7th grade social study teacher. And then when I came to PCMS, they actually asked me to run our STEM lab. And it was awesome. I got to know teachers. I was able to kind of see different teaching styles. I took on more leadership. I think I was always, as a teacher, flexible and willing to try new things. And luckily, my building principal saw something in me, and she encouraged me to go back to school. And so she said, hey, you need to go get your master's. And I was like, okay, but that really kind of scares me. And I think it was probably 6 months later, she was like, so have you signed up or not? And I was like, I guess I need to get signed up. And so I signed up, and then I became Dean of Students. I was Dean of Students last year, and then this is my first year as assistant principal here.
So I know Mrs. Teterow kind of gave you the push to start, but what inside of you made you think that this is for me, that administration was, or have you made that decision yet, that administration is for you and that you're enjoying what you're doing?
It is for me. I've always been a big relationship person, and before I left the classroom, I think I was afraid that like I would get so close with my kids and love them, and I'm like, as an administrator, how can I ever replicate that? But I do feel like I do that in such a large scale now. I love being able to support our teachers. I love spreading positivity. That's actually one of my favorite things to do as well. And then just setting the standard of what's happening in the building, whether that's in culture, whether that is behavior expectations for students. I've loved every part of it.
Well, it's funny you think about that. So many of us love being classroom teachers. We love education. We love working with kids. That relationship, hopefully, is important for all of us, right? That's probably the most important of all the duties that we get asked to do. But it's funny, when you leave the classroom, you don't realize that your sphere of influence really grows, and you go from impacting 30 kids every period, maybe 150, 180 kids a day, to a full building, and not only a building full of kids, but also adults. Absolutely. And the impact you can have. You spoke a little bit about working with other teachers in your role in the Idea Lab. How had that kind of role, working with teachers kind of as a leader, how did that make you feel more confident in your making that transition, and also help you now as you try to lead some of the folks that you were up here with not just a couple years ago?
That's a great question. So the Idea Lab did help me, that I had to help support our teachers, whether that was in projects, support them with students and lesson planning. So I had a broader understanding of lessons. I helped with iLearn. I helped plan field trips. There were all these systems that I ended up being a part of that I wasn't a part of in the classroom. And so being with teachers, actually my favorite thing was watching other teachers teach, watching them interact. And I felt like I learned so much, and it was a great segue for me into administration, that I think sometimes when you're classroom, your sphere is small. And so I think I only kind of saw one way, which was the way that I did it in the classroom. Sure. And so to be able to see other teachers teach and watch their strengths, which were very different from mine, to really lean in and love all the different types of people that it takes to run a school building.
That's great. So when you've made this transition, you're now in your 2nd year as an administrator, what was the biggest challenges you faced last year? What was the biggest kind of obstacle that just took some getting used to, and how have you kind of learned from that now as you start your 2nd year?
I feel like I was a big immediate action, jump on my back person, And I have found that, like, as soon as something happened, I felt like I needed to answer and I needed to help my teachers, and I had to solve those problems. But I found that if I'm always the one solving the problems, it takes away from my teachers' leadership. It takes away from them to be able to effectively make decisions in time and not being like, well, I can't make a decision because Julia's not here.
Right.
And so I think kind of figuring out what was an emergency, when can I ask a teacher, well, what do you think? How about you make the decision for that? And leaning in and giving them that kind of power, because it allowed me to be more effective at my job. If I'm solving every problem and I'm jumping every single time that I get an email, then I have found I'm not effectively able to do my job.
What else did you learn in this first year? If you were to sit down with somebody who was maybe 2 weeks into their first year as an administrator, they've got a full year ahead of them. What are some things, some tips, some tricks, some kind of coaching points you might give to that person who's, probably not sleeping very much, probably stressed about every email they get? What would you tell them?
So I have two things. So first and foremost, I love drive-by zingers, is what I like to call them. And so it's just kind of spreading that positivity. If I go by a teacher, it is my goal to say hi. Or I say, something like the zinger of like, oh, is it Friday? Or I love in like January 15th, if someone's like, how's your day? And I'm like, you know what? It's the top 15 day this year so far. So just little positivities, because they say that I think it's for every 5, it takes 5 positive interactions to outweigh 1 negative. And so I do think that makes a big impact when you say hi to kids, when you notice kids, when you say hi to your teachers and you notice them, when you have tough conversations later, you've built that relationship and you have a positive background before they even walk into your office.
Those deposits, right? Making those deposits in those relationship bank accounts are really important, because you're going to have to make withdrawals at some point with students and teachers and parents and the whole thing. So when you think about those routines that you have, maybe created for yourself in your first year, there's so many things. We all have this mile-long to-do list. What kind of routines or strategies have you used kind of in your day-to-day life to kind of help manage all the things that are expected of you as an administrator?
Well, that's the funny thing that I found last year as Dean of Students. There were these big things that happened, and I crossed my T's and I dotted my I's, and I had people double check my paperwork, and I was just ready for anything, and I felt like I did everything correctly. And those things never actually ended up coming back. What always felt like it came back was something that I felt like was small in the moment. And so thankfully I keep a sheet of paper out every single day that's like my to-do list, and then I have due process sheets, and I keep a binder of every single day. I save my to-do list, even the crossed out marked one. Who did I call? What did I do? I have the date on there, and my due process sheets, I'll tell you, saved my life so many times. If something I thought was little, I'm like, oh, I think I did do something on that. And I call back, I'm like, oh, yep, right here. So staying organized and having a binder, I actually have several different binders, but staying organized and even keeping my to-do list, whether that got done or not, it's gonna get filed, and some things get written on the next day. So organization has been the thing that's really helped me along.
So you finished year 1, you're starting year 2. What are some ways that you're going to try to grow in year 2? What are some of the ways you see yourself, or ways you're going to challenge yourself to continue to grow as an administrator?
Well, this year I'm taking on school safety specialist.
Okay.
So that's one automatic way that I'm going to grow. I took on our PLCs as well too. So I went and got some feedback from our teachers on what they liked about our PLCs. We run them a little bit differently than other school districts. And so I'm pretty proud about some of the feedback that we received from teachers and listening to that. And then I think in observation-wise, I feel like I am ready to have some deeper conversations with teachers. I feel like getting that this first year of getting through our observations of just kind of ready of what the main things that I'm looking for, and helping to build our teachers and feeling comfortable and confident in those conversations.
That's awesome. Well, I think Mrs. Teterow was right to push you into the world of administration. You've done a great job in our district from the classroom all the way now up into the assistant principal's office. And those relationships that you're talking about are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you sharing your perspective with our viewers. They get a chance to kind of hear your side of that first year, and that you can survive and you can
Absolutely.
thrive
Mm-hmm.
and do great things. And we look forward to seeing all the other great things you do in the coming years too here in Plainfield. So thank you for joining us, and we'll be back again with another episode in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Brent.
You're welcome. Thank you.